Jaden, what do we got in the news?
Tommy? Yeah, we do. So, to start it off, Representative Andy Ogles, Republican out of Tennessee, has suggested New York Democratic mayoral candidate Zoran Mamdani should be deported and denaturalized ahead of the November election. He wrote, Zoran, or Little Muhammad Mamdani, is an anti Semitic socialist communist who will destroy the great city of New York, Ogles wrote in a Thursday post on the social platform X. He added, he needs to be deported, which is why I'm calling for him to be subject to denaturalization proceedings, he added. Tennessee lawmaker attached his letter to Attorney General Pam Bondi in the post, urging her to denaturalize Mamdani, citing a chapter from the U.S. Code that outlines the revocation of citizenship for individuals who willfully misrepresent or conceal material support for terrorism. Christ. This is in line with what we've seen and known from the past decade or decade and a half of Islamophobia from the Republican Party. And it's following a gross pattern that's come out in the last 48 hours of people calling for him to be deported, of people falsely labeling him a T sympathizer and as part of some kind of organization, terror organization, based solely on the fact that he's Muslim. Never mind the fact that he's pro-gay. They believe he's endorsing Sharia law. Never mind the fact that he campaigned with a Jewish person and advocated for him to be the second on the ballot. They're calling him anti-Semitic.
This is so out of the playbook of the early 2000s. Like, I know that they're I don't know how old you were when that was going on. I remember though when they started labeling people as un-American and all this, and this is just the hyperized form of that. This really is like just the emergence of fascism.
Just mask off.
I mean, it is mask off, right? And the Republicans have done this in the past. I don't know that I've ever seen anything this brazen, but one of the things that they love to do is call literally anyone that disagrees with them either communist, socialist, pedophile, criminal, whatever, right? They love to add these equivocations to these people. And yeah, I mean, it's just devoid of just any decency. Just let the guy run. If he does a terrible job, look, what are you so afraid of? If he takes the city and destroys it, right? If he takes the city and destroys it, you get your answer. You're like, oh, okay, look, you can point to him forever, right? They're scared about it working. They're terrified about that working. Yep. Terrified.
And you'll notice, and you'll likely see coming out of the next few months as this campaign progresses, people like Eric Adams joining up with people who spew this rhetoric. And he was on Fox and Newsmax and other right-wing organizations peddling falsehoods about Mamdani. It's only a matter of time until he falls below the fray and joins in this kind of rhetoric. And he hasn't condemned it.
Yeah, this is just the worst version of the Republicans all coming out. This is what they do, is they accuse people of doing this shit. And
and centrist Democrats are in lockstep with this.
They've been like, what have they been saying about?
They haven't condemned it. They've not condemned it. They've labeled him anti-Semitic. That's one step off from calling him a terrorist, but they're not condemning any of the language coming out from the right.
The one thing I hate about the Democrats is that this is what I find really fucking annoying. This is what I find really, really, really frustrating, right? When the Republicans lost in 2020, did they change their tune? Did they have to go soul searching?
Nope.
Did they have to go, we got to rethink all of our policy platforms? Did they do any of that? No. What did they do? It was stolen. It was stolen. It's all a lie. We're actually really popular. It's all stolen. Everything's a lie. It's all of it. All of it is, it's just a lie. That's what they do, right? And they just go, no, our policies are good. They just deny everything. And then they win. They go, look, we won. We're justified in everything we think. Even though we just lost, we won. And the moment the Democrats lose, they go, oh, shit, what do we need to do differently with our policy? It's not a policy platform. It's a messaging. You look like pussies. That's why America doesn't fucking vote for you. Everything you do is weak. And then they go, oh, okay, well, why won't they vote for us? That's why. Because you're weak. Because you don't have any spine. And you've been like that for literally ever. It's been the biggest complaint. It's something I thought they would have resolved when Nancy Pelosi got just fucking blown out in 2014. and we knew it was a
Oh,
problem
yeah.
then.
Nope.
Sorry, go ahead, Gene.
Justice Department says Kilmar Abrego Garcia will face U.S. trial before any move to deport him again. The Justice Department on Thursday said it intends to try Kilmar Abrego Garcia on federal smuggling charges in Tennessee before it moves to deport him, addressing fears that he could be expelled again from the U.S. within days. U.S. Magistrate Judge Barbara Holmes in Nashville, Tennessee, recently ruled that Abrego Garcia has a right to be released from jail while awaiting trial on the smuggling charges. But she decided Wednesday to keep him in custody for at least a few more days over concerns that the U.S. immigration officials would swiftly detain him and try to deport him again. They are really adamant about this particular individual here, and I think it's because they recognize they've been caught.
Yeah.
So, never
Yeah.
mind the
Well,
fact that he is owed the right to be free while he awaits this trial. They're not affording him that.
yeah, it really is like desperation. It's just a
Yeah.
desperation move across the board. The whole thing is a desperation move. They keep losing court cases. They keep losing across the board. And so what do they want to do? They're going to go after him. They're going to go after him to try and prove a point. That even if you do get away with something, we're going to keep coming after you. That's what they're doing.
We'll find
That's
something.
the whole point. And
Yeah.
I really hope that the judges go after the prosecutors for this shit. I really hope they go after the people enforcing Trump administration's rulings because they need to learn their fucking lesson. They need to learn their place on this. I mean, they're just relentless. They're just like, we keep losing, we keep going after people, and it doesn't matter that they lose, right? Because even a loss is a win.
Mm-hmm.
They're running this guy
Well,
through
that's
the
what they
ringer.
said. When a 9-0 Supreme Court ruling came down on them, they said, no, we won this.
Mm-hmm. They're just going to keep going.
It's a fascist
That's all they're gonna
gaslighting
do.
tactic. Right.
Yep, they're just going to keep going after people and keep going after until they get them on something. And if they get them on something, they'll go, look, he was a bad guy. We were justified in everything we did. If they get him on nothing,
That's
they'll
right.
forget about it, move on. That's the Trump administration's
see.
MO. It's just literally wave, shiny objects out in front of their supporters, and they'll go, "Oh my God!" And then the moment that they're like, "Oh, this," like they just it's like a magician just pulls it. They're like, "Oh, we forgot all about that. I forgot that existed, huh?"
Yep.
Anyway, sorry, go
Let's
ahead.
see what else we've got here. The Supreme Court, we have a few cases from the Supreme Court here. The Supreme Court sides against migrants in deportation case. Conservative majority affirms 30-day deadline for removal challenges despite liberal justices' objections. The Supreme Court installed a tighter timeline for removable migrants to challenge their deportations as part of the decision on Thursday, in a case involving a Jamaican immigrant who had tried to avoid being sent back to his home country. The Supreme Court found that once migrants receive a final order of removal, a 30-day window for them to seek review of that order is triggered. The ruling was a roughly 5-4 ruling here, with the three liberal justices dissenting and Neil Gorsuch joining most in the dissent. Pierre Riley, the Jamaican national at the center of this case, had followed the law and challenged his final removal order in the immigration court system. But when he attempted to seek review from the appellate court of the immigration court's findings, the appellate court said its hands were tied because it had been more than a year since Riley had received the initial removal orders.
Okay, your thoughts on that?
I think, well, this is a bad move from the Supreme Court. It's reason as to why even Neil Gorsuch sees this as wrong territory. If you're going to expedite this system in challenging court rulings of removal, you're not going to have a very just process here. You're going to have people scrambling, people trying to do whatever possible to gain some kind of legal counsel, translators, court dates, whatever. 30 days is not enough to contest that. And I think they know
Is it just
that.
to
They want
file
to
the
make this as
paper? Is it
difficult.
is it just to file the paperwork, or it's got to be to just file the paperwork, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is for them to seek it's to seek review of that order.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, you have to have money.
Yeah. Basically, you have to be a wealthy migrant in order to challenge this order of removal.
Tracks.
Yeah. Which is in line with this $5 million, what was it, gold card or whatever it is. They only want the wealthiest to come in here. Yeah.
Yeah. And it is because we talked about the MAMDANI story earlier, which is funny because no one's questioning Musk. There's no investigation going on to Musk. And when I run for president, I'm going after him.
Good.
I'm going after him.
Also from the Supreme Court. Today, the Supreme Court cleared the way on Thursday for South Carolina to strip Planned Parenthood of funding under the Medicaid health insurance program in a ruling that bolsters efforts by Republican-led states to deprive the reproductive health care and abortion provider of public money. The 6-3 ruling overturned a lower court's decision barring Republican-governed South Carolina from terminating regional affiliate Planned Parenthood's South Atlantic participation in the state's Medicaid program because the organization provides abortions. The court's three liberal justices dissented from this decision. The case centered around whether recipients of Medicaid, a joint federal and state health insurance program for low-income people, may sue to enforce a requirement under U.S. law that they may obtain medical assistance from any qualified and willing provider.
Yeah, it's another attack on Planned Parenthood. This is going to be a really, really bad one because if they don't have access to federal funds. Yeah, it's going to. Yeah. You know, it's not enough for them that they have to target abortion. They also have to go after the providers of people that are giving abortion for actual healthcare reasons, right? For just more so than just an elective abortion, an actual this person's going to die. And it's crazy to me because the Republicans have really, and MAGA, you watch. It's like this weird dynamic where like. I don't think most MAGA really wants this. In fact, the numbers across the board show that most people are in favor of Roe v. Wade. I think there's the religious right, and they're pushing this. The thing that's scary is like, it seems like they're very in favor of allowing you to die.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like they're very in favor of allowing you to die.
Yeah.
And at any
I think
expense.
They fail to understand the capacity of what Planned Parenthood services has to offer and how it very much does benefit young men as well with things like testing for STDs and regular checkups and things like that, screenings. You can utilize those services as a young male through Planned Parenthood with virtually no cost, but they view it as this evil entity that's solely for the purposes of abortion. No, they do a number of different things that in many ways impacts men too. They don't care about that. So long as they can run on this notion that children are dying in this facility, which they're not, they're going to keep peddling and fear-mongering that and undermining the very good things that these services provide.
Exactly. I mean, was it like it's like well over, I think it's 99.8% of all of Planned Parenthood. It's really high. I can't remember the exact percentage, is non-abortion care.
Yeah.
And by the way, I just want to point out that Planned Parenthood can't use federal funds. So Medicaid would be for abortion. So your argument on this of protecting abortion,
using it.
right, your entire argument on this is completely bunk. There's no argument there because those funds can't be used for abortions regardless. The whole point is to try and defund them, to remove medical access specifically for abortions because they provide them. That's the whole point. But your justification in this is like, oh, they're just stopping. Had nothing to do with it. Nothing.
Another critical service they provide are paternity tests. So for all the people that argue that a man shouldn't be straddled down to a child that's not their own and have to pay child care and it ruins their life and all that other bullshit, this is a service that they provide that benefits that argument. But they don't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. Do we have...
No. We've got about two more. Yeah, there's two more here. A Canadian citizen died in custody of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement earlier this week, the agency says. Johnny Noviello, 49, died in a detention center in Florida on Monday, an ICE news release says. The cause of death is unknown and is under investigation, according to the release. Despite having Canadian citizenship, Noviello had been in the U.S. since 1988 and became a lawful permanent resident in 1991, the release says. 2023, he was convicted of a number of offenses, including racketeering and smug trafficking, and had been sentenced to 12 months in prison. Public court documents from the case state that Noviello had epilepsy, which required medication to control his seizure. ICE agents arrested Noviello in May, and he had been detained pending removal proceedings, the agency's news release said. I don't have much to say about that, but I think it's very clear the neglect and the degree of callousness that they show any person that is detained, regardless of their medical history and capabilities. There doesn't seem to be that quality of care afforded to them. I think just earlier today there was a pregnant woman who had a child separated from her, and several people have died within ICE custody. This just being another one of those. So
Yeah,
this is
the
of grave concern here.
yeah, the conditions are deteriorating. I mean,
Yeah.
there was a story I covered the other day. I don't know if I covered it on here, but I covered it on TikTok, where children are fighting adults over water.
Yes. Tap water.
There was a child that couldn't get access to his cancer treatment. That type of stuff, that type of neglect. It's really gross. So, but yeah, the conditions are deteriorating, and this is the sick part about it. Mega's moral compass is so unbelievably bankrupt. They're like, good. And by the way, the people in the detention center I just mentioned, in case you guys were going to say, well, they're undocumented, they came here legally.
Yeah.
So, I don't want to hear it at all.
On a lighter note, to wrap this up, the Trump Organization has removed a reference to the recently announced T1 smartphone being made in America. The T1's webpage now has a reference reading American Proud Design. The website says that the device is brought to life right here in the USA. When the T1 was initially announced, experts told CNBC the device would likely be made in China. Trump Organization scrapped a reference that it recently revealed smartphone will be made in the U.S. amid doubts that such a device can be manufactured on U.S. shores. So, looks as though it's not U.S. made, just designed.
Oh.
Are we surprised?
Wait.
No.
We talked about this, so okay.
Didn't we say this would happen?
Yeah. Okay, what was this? So we read the specs. I don't think I read them on the
right.
Trump. But I did read off the specs.
You read them on the Liberty one.
The Liberty, not the T1. Let me find out what the 12 gigabyte RAM. What's the processor? Let me see.
Oh boy.
God, available with 4, 6, or 8 cores, so 1 gigahertz to 1.4. That's okay. So 1.1 gigahertz. The new Apple, the A18 chip. A second. I have a point, I promise. Is okay. It doesn't say the. Give me the specs. 4.4, so 4 times as fast per core. So they're basically like, if the processor's not gonna be made in the United States, which I don't know what the processor is, it's painfully bad. If you were to buy a tablet off of Amazon, just a generic tablet, it would have about the same processing speed. So, and they're going to sell this for an absurd amount of money. It can't really be built in the United States.
It's only $500.
You pay for what you get. $500 for that is a lot.
You get a
I'm
cheap
gonna
phone.
be real. $500 for that is a lot of money. You know what I mean? We went over the Liberty phone, which is $2,000, and that has the same specs as a iPhone 6.
Yeah. This is an Android 15 operating system.
Of course it is, which can't be built in the United States at all. So this is painfully pathetic. But yeah, Griff got a Griff. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's terrible. Are we good on the news?
That is the news.
All right.